The wind howled across the rocky surface of Taeyang 7, carrying dust that scratched against the windows of the small research station. Inside, Han Doyen sat at his desk, staring at screens filled with data about alien plants. He had been alone on this remote outpost for 8 months now, and the loneliness was starting to feel like a physical weight on his chest. Doyen was a xenobiologist, which meant he studied life forms from other planets. The company sent him here to catalog the local plants and small creatures. It was important work, they said. It was also incredibly boring. Most days, nothing happened. He would collect samples, run tests, and send reports back to Earth. Then he would eat a tasteless meal and sleep in his narrow bed, only to wake up and do it all again. The alarm on his console beeped. Something had triggered the perimeter sensors. Doyen frowned. Large animals rarely came this close to the station. He pulled up the external cameras and saw smoke rising from behind a rock formation about half a kilometer away. His heart began to beat faster. Smoke meant fire. Fire meant a crash. He grabbed his environmental suit and rushed outside. The thin atmosphere made breathing difficult even with the suit's help. As he climbed over the rocks, the crash site came into view. A small escape pod had torn through the ground, leaving a deep scar in the red soil. Parts of the pod were still burning, melting into twisted metal. Doyen approached carefully. These pods were designed for emergencies, meant to save lives when larger ships failed. But this one looked old, damaged beyond repair. He circled around it, checking for survivors. The pod door had been blown off, probably from impact. Inside, he could see an empty harness and scattered supplies. Then he heard it. A small, pitiful sound. A whimper. He followed the noise to a cluster of rocks near the crash site. There, wedged between 2 stones, was a tiny creature. It was about the size of a house cat, covered in fur that seemed to glow faintly with blue and silver stripes. The creature had 4 legs, a long tail, and a face that was almost cat-like, but with larger eyes and small fangs visible in its open mouth. It was bleeding from several wounds, and one of its legs bent at a wrong angle. Doyen knew the rules. Unknown alien species should not be touched. They should be observed from a distance and reported to the proper authorities. Contact could be dangerous. The creature could carry diseases. It could be poisonous. Its parents might be nearby and aggressive. But as Doyen looked at the small injured animal, all he could think about was how afraid it must be. How much pain it was in. How it would die out here alone if he did nothing. He carefully picked up the creature, wrapping it in a thermal blanket from his emergency kit. It struggled weakly, making small chirping sounds. "It's okay," Doyen whispered, knowing it couldn't understand him. "I've got you now. You're safe." Back at the station, Doyen set up a medical area in his lab. He had basic veterinary supplies meant for treating the small local animals he studied. He cleaned the creature's wounds, applied antiseptic gel, and carefully set the broken leg using a small splint. The creature had fallen unconscious, which was probably for the best. Doyen gave it an injection of broad-spectrum painkillers, hoping the medication would work across species. While the creature slept, Doyen turned to his computer. He took detailed scans of the animal and ran them through the Galactic species database. The search took nearly an hour, but finally a match appeared on the screen. Doyen's blood went cold. The creature was a Vexithar. A baby Vexithar, but a Vexithar nonetheless. He had heard of the Vexithar. Everyone in the galaxy had heard of them. They were apex predators from a distant world, famous for their hunting skills and their aggression. Adult Vexithar stood 8 feet tall and could tear through metal with their claws. They had venomous bites that could paralyze prey 3 times their size. Entire colonies had been evacuated when even a single Vexithar was spotted nearby. The Galactic database had a bright red warning attached to all information about the species. Extremely dangerous. Do not approach. Do not attempt contact. Eliminate on sight if necessary for self-preservation. Doyen looked at the small creature sleeping peacefully in the medical bay. It looked so harmless now, so vulnerable. But one day it would grow into something terrifying. Something that could kill him without effort. His communicator buzzed. It was Park Minseo, his supervisor, calling for the weekly check-in. Doyen hesitated, then answered the call. Minseo's face appeared on the screen. She was a stern woman in her 50s with short hair and tired eyes. "Doyen, how are things at Taeyang 7? Any problems to report?" Doyen made a quick decision. He told her about the crash. He told her about the creature. He showed her the scans. Minseo's face went pale. That's a Vexthar, she said quietly. Doyen, you need to destroy it immediately. That's not a request. That's an order. Vexthar are classified as extinction-level threats. If the Galactic Council finds out you're harboring one, we could lose our trading privileges. Humanity could be labeled as hostile. It's just a baby, Doyen argued. It's injured. It can't hurt anyone right now. Right now, Minseo repeated. But in a few months it will be strong enough to kill you. In a year it could threaten everyone on this planet. These creatures are not pets, Doyen. They're weapons. Evolution designed them to hunt and kill. That's all they know. We don't know that for sure, Doyen said. Maybe they're only dangerous because no one has ever tried to understand them. Maybe if this one grows up around someone who cares for it, it could be different. Minseo closed her eyes and rubbed her temples. You're thinking with your heart, not your head. I understand the impulse. You're lonely out there? You want something to care for. But this is not the answer. End the creature's life humanely. That's the kindest thing you can do for it and for yourself. No, Doyen said simply. Excuse me? I said no. I'm not going to kill it. I'm going to try to save it. And if I can save it, I'm going to raise it. I'll document everything. I'll prove that Vexthar can be more than just predators. Minseo was quiet for a long moment. If you do this, you're on your own. I can't protect you if things go wrong. The company will disavow any knowledge of your actions. Do you understand? I understand. You're a fool, Doyen. Maybe. But I'd rather be a fool who tried than a coward who didn't. The call ended. Doyen stood alone in his lab, listening to the soft breathing of the sleeping creature. He had just made a decision that could end his career, possibly his life. But as he looked at the small striped ball of fur, he felt more certain than he had about anything in years. He gently touched the creature's head. It stirred slightly, making a small sound like a purr. You need a name, Doyen said softly. Something strong. Something that means you're more than what everyone thinks you are. He thought for a moment, then smiled. Kira. I'll call you Kira. It means light in one of the old Earth languages. You're going to be a light in the darkness, little one. I promise. Outside, the wind continued to howl. But inside the small station, something impossible had just begun. 3 years passed like water flowing through Doyen's fingers. The small research station had become something different now. It was no longer just a lonely outpost on a remote planet. It was a home. Kira had grown. The tiny cub that once fit in Doyen's hands now stood as tall as his chest when she rose on her hind legs. Her fur had deepened in color, the blue and silver stripes now gleaming like metal under the station lights. Her muscles rippled beneath her coat, and her claws, when extended, could slice through the tough local plants with ease. But she was gentle with Doyen. She had learned to control her strength, to move carefully around the fragile equipment in the lab. When she wanted attention, she would nudge his leg with her head, making a deep rumbling sound that was almost like a cat's purr, but lower, more resonant. Doyen had documented everything. He recorded how Kira learned to understand his words even though she couldn't speak them herself. He noted her problem-solving abilities, her capacity for planning, her memory. She was intelligent in ways that surprised him every day. When he worked on complex equations, she would watch, her large eyes tracking the numbers on the screen as if she understood them. Maybe she did. He taught her games. Simple ones at first, like finding hidden objects, then more complex challenges that required strategy. She learned quickly, adapting her tactics each time. Doyen realized that Kira wasn't just smart. She was brilliant, but she was also a predator. Doyen never forgot that. He let her hunt the small creatures that lived in the rocks outside the station. He watched as she stalked them with perfect patience, her body low to the ground, her movements silent. When she struck, it was fast and precise. She killed cleanly, never causing unnecessary suffering. Doyen felt conflicted about these hunts. Part of him hated seeing death, even the death of small animals. But he understood that denying Kira her nature would be cruel in a different way. She needed to hunt. It was who she was. The key was teaching her when to hunt and when to hold back. The supply ship arrived every 6 months. Captain Choi Hana was the only human Doyen had seen face-to-face since he had found Kira. When Hana first learned about the Vexthar, she had refused to leave her ship. She spoke to Doyen through the communication system, her voice tight with fear. You're insane, she had said. That thing will kill you. Her name is Kira, Doyen replied patiently. And she won't hurt me, watch. He had brought Kira to the landing area. The young Vexthar sat beside him, her posture relaxed. When Doyun gave a hand signal, she lay down, resting her head on her paws. She looked almost peaceful. It took 2 more visits before Hana finally agreed to leave her ship. She wore heavy protective gear and carried a weapon, but she came. Doyen introduced them slowly. Kira sniffed Hana's extended hand, then made a friendly chirping sound. "She likes you," Doyen said, smiling. "Or she's deciding how I taste," Hana muttered. But she smiled too, just a little. Over time, Hana became a friend to both of them. She was the one who brought news from the rest of the galaxy. And the news was troubling. The Vexthar had been attacking settlements in the outer territories. Not random attacks, but organized searches. They were looking for something. Someone. The Galactic Council had issued new warnings, and several planets had banned all Vexthar from their systems. Tensions were rising. "They're searching for survivors from that escape pod," Hana told Doyen during one visit. "The pod that crashed here 3 years ago. It belonged to someone important." Doyen felt his stomach tighten. "How important?" "Very. The pod was registered to Vaxthor's family. He's their supreme war leader, some kind of royalty, as much as they have royalty. If his daughter was on that pod..." Hana trailed off, looking at Kira, who was playing with a puzzle toy Doyen had made for her. "You think Kira is his daughter?" Doyen asked quietly. "I think it's possible, and if she is, then you're sitting on a problem that could start a war." Doyen spent many sleepless nights after that conversation. He watched Kira as she slept, curled up on the cushions he had arranged for her in the corner of his room. She trusted him completely. She had never known her own kind, never learned their ways. To her, Doyen was family. He was everything. What would happen if her real family found her? Would they understand what he had tried to do? Or would they see only a human who had corrupted one of their own? He taught Kira new things. He showed her images of other Vexthar, trying to help her understand her heritage. She looked at the pictures with curiosity but no recognition. To her, they were just images. They meant nothing compared to the real living being who fed her, played with her, and kept her safe. Doyun also taught her about humans. He showed her videos of Earth, of cities and forests, of children playing and people working together. He wanted her to understand that not all species were the same, that cooperation was possible, that violence was a choice, not a destiny. One evening, as the sun set over Taiyang 7, painting the sky in shades of purple and orange, Doyen sat outside with Kira. She had grown large enough now that she could easily overpower him if she wanted to. Her venomous fangs had fully developed. Her claws were razor sharp. By all rights, he should be terrified of her. But he wasn't. He trusted her as much as she trusted him. "Kira," he said softly. She turned her head to look at him, her intelligent eyes reflecting the sunset. "One day your family might come for you. If they do, you'll have to make a choice. You can go with them, back to your own people. I won't stop you. Or you can stay with me. Whatever you choose, I want you to know that I love you. You're not just a research project to me. You're not just an alien creature. You're my friend. My family." Kira moved closer and rested her large head on his lap. The weight was substantial, but Doyun didn't mind. He stroked her fur, feeling the warmth of her body, the steady rhythm of her breathing. "The galaxy is afraid of you," he continued. "They think you're a monster. But I know better. You're capable of kindness, of love, of choice. That's what I've tried to teach you, that you get to decide who you are, not instinct, not species, you." A shooting star crossed the sky above them. Doyun made a wish, though he wasn't sure he believed in such things anymore. He wished for more time. Time to prepare Kira for whatever was coming. Time to prove that what they had built together was real and meaningful. Inside the station, the communication system beeped, indicating an incoming long-range message. Doyen ignored it. Whatever it was, it could wait until morning. Right now, in this moment, he just wanted to sit with Kira and watch the stars. He didn't know that the message was from the Galactic Council. He didn't know that they had finally detected Kira's biosignature. He didn't know that ships were already being prepared, that decisions were being made far away that would change everything. For now, there was peace. For now, there was just a man and the predator he had raised, sitting together as the darkness fell around them. The ships arrived at dawn. Doyen was making breakfast when the proximity alarm screamed to life. He ran to the console and felt his heart drop. 6 vessels had entered orbit around Taiyang 7. 2 were human military ships. 4 bore the markings of the Velaran Empire. Kira sensed his fear. She moved to his side, pressing against his leg. She had grown even larger in the past 2 years. Now she stood nearly as tall as Doyun when on all fours, and her presence filled the small station. Her fur bristled slightly, an instinctive response to danger. "It's okay," Doyun said, though his voice shook. "Just stay calm. Let me do the talking." The communication screen flickered to life. A woman in a human military uniform appeared. Her face was hard, her eyes cold. "This is Commander Lee Jiwan of the Earth Defense Force. Han Doyun, you are ordered to stand down and prepare for immediate inspection. We have credible intelligence that you are harboring an illegal alien life form classified as a galactic threat." "Her name is Kira," Doyun said, "and she's not a threat. She's—" "We will determine that," Commander Lee interrupted. "Keep the creature contained. We're landing in 10 minutes. Any resistance will be met with force." The screen went dark. Doyun looked at Kira. She was watching him, waiting for guidance. She had always looked to him to understand the world. Now he had to figure out how to protect her from it. The landing party consisted of Commander Lee, 3 human soldiers, and 2 Velaran officials wearing elaborate environmental suits. The Velaran were tall, thin beings with gray skin and large black eyes. They moved nervously, their suits equipped with personal defense shields. When they entered the station, all eyes immediately went to Kira. The soldiers raised their weapons. The Velaran officials took several steps back. "Hold your fire," Commander Lee ordered. She studied Kira carefully. "It's larger than I expected." Doyun corrected. "Kira is female, and she won't hurt anyone unless threatened." One of the Velaran officials spoke, his voice translated through a device on his suit. "This creature is a Vexthar. Vexthar do not coexist peacefully. They hunt, they kill. This is documented across hundreds of encounters. The human has clearly used some form of chemical or technological restraint to keep it docile." "That's not true," Doyun said angrily. "I haven't used anything. Kira chooses to be peaceful. She's intelligent. It understands nothing but predation," the Velaran insisted. "We demand this creature be destroyed immediately or handed over to Velaran containment facilities." Kira growled. It was a low, dangerous sound that made everyone in the room tense. The soldiers' fingers moved to their triggers. "Kira, no," Doyun said firmly. He made a hand gesture they had practiced many times. Slowly, Kira sat down, though her muscles remained coiled, ready to spring. Commander Lee watched this exchange with interest. "How long have you had it?" 5 years, Doyun admitted. "I found her as an injured cub. I saved her life and raised her. That was incredibly foolish." "Maybe. But it was also right." One of the human soldiers, a young man who hadn't taken his eyes off Kira, spoke up. "Commander, permission to speak?" "Go ahead." That thing just obeyed a command. "I've never heard of a Vexthar following orders. They're supposed to be uncontrollable." The Velaran official made a dismissive gesture. "A temporary aberration? Probably due to youth. As it matures, its true nature will emerge. It will turn on the human and kill him. This is inevitable." "You don't know that," Doyun said. "You've never tried to understand the Vexthar. You've only feared them." "With good reason," the Velaran shot back. "They have destroyed 17 of our colonies. Thousands of my people have died at their claws. They are monsters, and you are a fool for believing otherwise." The argument was interrupted by a new alarm. Commander Lee checked her datapad and her face went pale. "We have incoming vessels. Multiple signatures. They're Vexthar ships," everyone froze. Through the station's windows, Doyun could see lights appearing in the sky. Ships were descending through the atmosphere, large and angular, unlike any human or Velaran design. "They found her," Commander Lee said quietly. "They've been searching for 5 years, and they finally found her." The largest Vexthar ship landed near the station, creating tremors that shook the floor. Doyun watched through the window as a boarding ramp extended. A massive figure emerged. Even from a distance, Doyun could tell this Vexthar was different from Kira. He was enormous, his fur darker, scarred in many places. He moved with the confidence of someone who had never known fear. Behind him came other Vexthar, all warriors, all deadly. Kira made a sound Doyun had never heard before. It was something between a whimper and a growl. She was afraid. "That's Vaxthor," the Velaran official whispered. "The war leader. If he's here personally, then this creature must be his daughter," Commander Lee finished. She looked at Doyun. You've been raising the daughter of the most dangerous being in the galaxy. Do you have any idea what you've done? Doyen moved to stand beside Kira, placing his hand on her head. I saved a life. That's all I did. The station door opened. Vaxthor had to duck to enter. He filled the space with his presence, making even Commander Lee look small. His eyes, golden and bright, scanned the room before settling on Kira. He spoke in the Vexthar language, a series of growls and clicking sounds. Kira's ears flattened against her head. She didn't respond. A translation device activated. My daughter, Vaxthor's voice rumbled. After so long I find you alive. Come, we will return home. Kira didn't move. She pressed closer to Doyen. Vaxthor's eyes shifted to Doyen. Human. You have kept my child alive. For this I will not kill you immediately. Release her now. I'm not holding her prisoner, Doyen said, trying to keep his voice steady. Kira can leave whenever she wants. But the choice is hers. She is Vexthar. She belongs with her people. She's an individual. She belongs wherever she chooses. Vaxthor took a step forward. The soldiers raised their weapons, though Doyen knew they would be useless against a creature like this. You have corrupted her. Made her weak. She should be showing dominance, not cowering behind a prey species. She's not cowering, Doyen said. She's choosing. There's a difference. For a long moment, Vaxthor stared at Doyen. Then he looked back at Kira. He spoke again in his own language, gentler this time. Kira responded, her own growls hesitant, unpracticed. She speaks our tongue poorly, Vaxthor said, his voice heavy with something that might have been disappointment or sadness. She thinks in your language now. You have taken my daughter and made her something else. I gave her options, Doyen replied. I taught her that she could be strong and kind, powerful and gentle. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. The Velarin official stepped forward. This discussion is pointless. The creature must be contained. We cannot risk. Vaxthor turned his gaze on the Velarin. The official immediately stopped talking and backed away. I will make a proposal, Vaxthor said, looking at everyone in the room. We will go to neutral ground, a place where all parties can gather safely. There we will decide my daughter's fate. The Galactic Council will oversee. Commander Lee nodded slowly. That's acceptable to Earth. The Velarin official hesitated, then agreed. Doyen felt Kira trembling beside him. He knelt down and looked into her eyes. It's going to be okay, he whispered. Whatever happens, we face it together. Outside, more ships were arriving. The sky filled with vessels from across the galaxy. Word had spread fast. Everyone wanted to see what would happen when a human who raised a predator finally had to answer for his choice. Janus Point was a space station that belonged to no one and everyone. Built at the exact midpoint between three major territories, it served as neutral ground for diplomatic meetings. The station was vast with gardens under domed ceilings, meeting halls that could hold thousands, and security systems designed to prevent any violence. Doyen had never imagined he would stand in such a place. Yet here he was, in a large chamber with representatives from dozens of species watching him. Kira stood beside him, her size making many of the observers uncomfortable. Guards lined the walls, though everyone knew they would be useless if Kira decided to attack. On one side of the chamber sat the human delegation, led by High Chancellor Kim Sora. She was an elderly woman with sharp eyes and a reputation for tough decisions. Next to the humans sat the Velarin representatives, including their Empress appearing through a holographic projection. The Empress was beautiful in an alien way, her skin shimmering like oil on water. On the opposite side sat Vaxthor and a dozen other Vexthar. They looked out of place in the polished chamber, too wild, too dangerous. Vaxthor himself sat perfectly still, his golden eyes never leaving Kira. Ambassador Yun Tai-hyun stood at the center of the chamber. He was the human chosen to mediate this meeting, a skilled diplomat who had prevented 3 wars in his career. Now he faced perhaps his greatest challenge. We are here, Yun began, his voice calm, to determine the fate of the Vexthar known as Kira. The Velarin Empire claims she poses an existential threat and must be contained. The Vexthar claim she is one of their own and must be returned. The human Hondoyan claims she has the right to choose her own path. We will hear all arguments. The Velarine Empress spoke first, her hologram flickering slightly. The Vexthar are a plague upon civilization. For centuries they have attacked our worlds without provocation. They cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be trusted. This creature, despite the humans' misguided attempts at domestication, will eventually revert to her true nature. When that happens, people will die. We cannot allow that risk. Murmurs of agreement came from several species in the audience. Vaxthor rose to his feet. Every guard in the room tensed. My people do not attack without reason. We defend our territory. We protect our own. Your empire has encroached on our worlds, stolen our resources, and killed our young. You call us monsters, but you have never tried to understand us. You shoot first and justify it later. Because your kind are killers, a Velarine official shouted. As are yours, Vaxthor replied coldly. The difference is we are honest about it. High Chancellor Kim raised her hand. This debate about Vaxthor nature is not productive. What matters now is Kira specifically. She is an individual, not a representative of her entire species. She has lived peacefully for 5 years. She has harmed no one. Surely that counts for something. The Velarin Empress's image turned to face Doyun. Tell me, human, has your pet ever shown aggression? Ever lost control? Doyun stepped forward. Kira is not a pet. She's an intelligent being. And yes, she has shown aggression. She hunts for food. She growls when startled. But she has never attacked anyone who didn't threaten her first. She understands consequences. She makes choices. Convenient choices, the Empress said. Choices that keep her alive and comfortable. But what happens when circumstances change? What happens when she is hungry and you have no food? What happens when she is angry? The same thing that happens with any person, Doyun replied. She deals with it. She controls herself. That's what I taught her. Vaxthor stood again. You taught her to be weak, to deny her nature. That is not kindness, human. That is cruelty. I taught her to have options, Doyun shot back. Being strong doesn't mean being violent. Being predator doesn't mean being mindless. She can hunt and think. She can be powerful and merciful. You see those as contradictions. I see them as evolution. The chamber fell silent. Vaxthor stared at Doyun for a long moment. Then he made a decision that shocked everyone. I challenge your teaching, he said. In our culture, we prove worth through trials. If you believe my daughter is strong despite your influence, then let her prove it. She will face 3 of our warriors in a traditional hunt. If she survives using your methods, I will accept that perhaps you have not ruined her. If she fails, it proves that you have made her weak. No, Doyun said immediately. I won't let you put her through that. But Kira made a sound. A low, determined growl. She stepped forward, looking at her father for the first time with something other than fear. She spoke in the Vexthar language, her words halting but clear. The translation came through. I accept. Doyun grabbed her arm. Kira, you don't have to do this. We can find another way. She looked at him with her intelligent eyes. Then she did something that stunned everyone in the room. She reached out with her clawed hand and gently touched Doyun's face. It was a gesture of affection, of trust. Then she turned back to Vaxthor and repeated her acceptance. Ambassador Yoon looked troubled. This is highly irregular. The Galactic Council cannot endorse what amounts to a death match. It is not a death match, Vaxthor said. It is a trial. My warriors will not kill her, but they will test her. If she is truly as capable as the human claims, she will survive. If not, he didn't finish the sentence. High Chancellor Kim spoke quietly to Doyun. You don't have to agree to this. It's not my choice, Doyun replied, his voice hollow. It's hers. She wants to prove herself. To her father. To everyone. Maybe to herself. The trial was set for the next day on a moon near Janus Point. The moon was uninhabited, covered in forests and rocky terrain. Perfect hunting ground. That night Doyun couldn't sleep. He sat with Kira in their assigned quarters, grooming her fur like he had done when she was small. She seemed calm, almost relaxed. I'm scared, Doyun admitted. I'm scared I'm going to lose you, Kira rumbled softly. She couldn't speak human words, but she understood them. She pressed her head against his chest and Doyun wrapped his arms around her neck. Everything I taught you about being careful, about holding back, about not hurting others, you might have to forget all of that tomorrow. You might have to fight like a true Vexthar, and I don't know if you can do that. I don't know if I taught you too well to be gentle. But even as he said it, Doyun remembered watching Kira hunt. He remembered the speed, the precision, the deadly grace. She had never lost her instincts. She had just learned to control them. You're going to be amazing, he whispered. You're going to show them all that you can be both things at once. Kind and fierce. gentle and deadly. "You're going to prove that I was right about you?" Kira made a sound that might have been agreement, or maybe it was just comfort for Doyen's fear. The next morning, ships gathered in orbit around the trial moon. It seemed like half the galaxy wanted to witness this moment. Cameras were set up to broadcast the event. Bets were being placed on various worlds about whether Kira would survive. Doyen stood at the landing site with Kira. 3 Vexthar warriors waited at the forest edge. They were massive, scarred, experienced. They had killed before. Many times Vaxthor approached Doyen one last time. "If my daughter falls today, I will not blame you, human. You tried to save her. That is more than her own people did when her ship crashed. Whatever happens, know that I am grateful she did not die alone on that rock." It was the closest thing to kindness Doyen had heard from the war leader. Kira walked toward the forest. At the edge, she looked back at Doyen one last time. He raised his hand in farewell. Then she disappeared into the trees and the trial began. The forest was silent. Doyen watched the monitor screen set up at the landing site, showing feeds from drones following the trial. His hands shook. Beside him, Commander Lee stood quietly. Even she seemed affected by the tension. Kira moved through the trees like a shadow. The 3 Vexthar warriors had split up, circling her position. They were experienced hunters and they moved with confidence. This was their element. They expected Kira to panic, to make mistakes. She did neither. The first warrior came from above, dropping from a tree branch with claws extended. It was a classic ambush technique. Kira should have been caught completely off guard, but she wasn't there when he landed. She had heard him shift his weight on the branch seconds before. She was already moving, rolling to the side and coming up in a defensive crouch. The warrior spun to face her, impressed despite himself. They circled each other. The warrior feinted left, then struck right. Kira didn't take the bait. She waited, watched, and when he committed to his real attack, she wasn't where he expected. She used a move Doyen had taught her, something from human martial arts. She redirected his momentum instead of meeting his strength head-on. The warrior stumbled, surprised. Before he could recover, Kira was on him. But she didn't go for the kill. Instead, she pinned him, her jaws at his throat but not biting. She held him there for 3 seconds, then released him and backed away. In Vexthar culture, that was victory. She could have killed him but chose mercy. The warrior bowed his head in acknowledgement and withdrew from the trial. "1 down," Commander Lee murmured. 2 to go. The remaining warriors changed their strategy. They knew now that Kira was skilled, that she wouldn't fall for simple tricks. They began hunting her together, coordinating their attacks. Kira ran. To the observers, it looked like retreat. Some of the watching Velarin made sounds of satisfaction, believing they were right about her weakness. But Doyen saw something else. Kira wasn't running in panic. She was leading them somewhere specific. She was using the terrain, thinking several steps ahead. She led them to a narrow ravine. The 2 warriors followed, confident in their numerical advantage. When they entered the ravine, Kira was waiting at the top. She had climbed the rock face, something pure Vexithar rarely did. They preferred to fight on the ground where their strength mattered most. Kira jumped down between them, forcing them to attack from 2 sides at once. It should have been her end, but she kept moving, never staying still, using their own bulk against them. When one attacked, she made sure the other was in the way. She was smaller, faster, and she was thinking. The fight was brutal. Claws raked across Kira's shoulder, drawing blood. She took hits that would have killed a human. But she kept fighting, kept adapting. And slowly she gained the upper hand. She managed to isolate one warrior, driving him back against the ravine wall. Again, she had the chance to kill. Again, she chose not to. She delivered a stunning blow to his head, knocking him unconscious but alive. The final warrior stopped fighting. He looked at Kira with something like respect. He spoke in the Vexthar language, and the translation came through the monitors. "You fight with honor and wisdom." "I yield." Kira stood in the ravine, breathing hard, bleeding from several wounds. But she was alive. She was victorious. The observers erupted into noise. Some cheered. Some argued. The Velarin Empress's hologram flickered with what might have been distress. Vaxthor walked into the forest alone. Doyen wanted to follow, to be there when Vaxthor reached Kira, but Commander Lee held him back. "This is between them now," she said quietly. The drones captured the moment. Vaxthor stood before his daughter, looking down at her. Kira met his gaze, not backing down. She was wounded but unbowed. Vaxthor spoke, his voice full of emotion. You fight like no Vexthar I have ever seen. You use tactics. You show mercy. You think before you strike. By our traditions, you should be weak. But you defeated 3 of our best warriors. Kira responded in halting Vexthar. The translation came through. I am Vexthar, but I'm also myself. For the first time anyone could remember, Vaxthor made a sound that might have been a laugh. Yes, you are yourself, and perhaps that is better than being only Vexthar. He touched her head gently with one massive paw. I am proud, my daughter. Your mother would be proud. The moment was broadcast across the galaxy. A Vexthar war leader showing affection. A Vexthar warrior showing mercy. It was unprecedented. 5 years passed. Unity Point Alpha hung in space like a promise. The station was enormous, built by humans, Vexthar, and even Velarin working together. It wasn't easy. There were fights, misunderstandings, and setbacks. But it stood as proof that cooperation was possible. Doyon was older now, gray touching his temples. He stood on an observation deck watching ships come and go. Beside him stood Kira, now fully grown, magnificent and powerful. She wore a translator device that allowed her to speak directly, though she still preferred to communicate with Doyon in their own way. Ships from Earth arrive, Kira said, her translated voice melodic and strange. Bayuna comes to continue studies. Doyon smiled. She's a good student. Asks lots of questions, like you did, when I was small. They stood in comfortable silence. Across the galaxy, the story of the human who raised a predator had spread. But the truth was more complex than the legend. Doyon hadn't tamed Kira. He had simply given her space to be herself, young. Vexthar now came to Unity Point to learn what Kira called the balanced way. They were taught to honor their hunting instincts, while also learning strategy, diplomacy, and cooperation. It was controversial among traditionalist Vexthar, but Vaxthor supported it. The old war leader visited often. He and Doyon had become something like friends, though it was a strange friendship built on mutual respect rather than similarity. Captain Hana's ship docked regularly, bringing supplies and news. Commander Lee had been promoted and now oversaw joint security forces that included Vexthar members. Even some Velarine had slowly begun to accept that change was happening, but there were still problems. Some species refused to work with Vexthar. Some Vexthar refused to abandon the old ways. Trust was fragile, easily broken. Doyon didn't pretend everything was perfect, but it was better. That was enough. A group of young beings approached, different species learning together. They came to Kira for their afternoon lesson. She was patient with them, teaching hunting techniques alongside problem-solving skills. She showed them that strength and intelligence weren't opposites. One small alien child, barely waist-high, looked up at Kira with wide eyes. Are you scary? The child asked. Kira considered the question seriously. Yes, I'm scary. I am Predator. But I choose when to be scary. I choose when to be gentle. That is the lesson. How do you choose? The child asked. I think about what happens next. About consequences. About others. My father taught me to hunt, but Doyon taught me to think about why I hunt. Doyon felt a lump in his throat. After all these years, Kira still credited him with her wisdom. But he knew the truth. The wisdom had always been in her. He had just helped her find it. As the lesson continued, Doyon walked to the communication center. He had a report to file. The Galactic Council wanted regular updates on the Unity Point project. They were considering expanding the program to other stations. He typed his report, choosing his words carefully. He wrote about successes and failures, about progress and setbacks, and he ended with the same words he used in every report. The future is not written, but if we choose compassion over fear, if we choose understanding over judgment, if we choose to see individuals rather than species, then perhaps we can build something better. The galaxy is full of predators. The key is teaching them that mercy is not weakness, that thinking is not betrayal of instinct, that being different is not being wrong. He sent the report and returned to the observation deck. Kira had finished her lesson. She stood alone looking out at the stars. What do you think about? Doyon asked, joining her. I think about the small cub who crashed, who hurt and scared, who found by strange alien who should kill but chose save. I think about how one choice changed everything. Your choice or mine? Both. You chose save. I chose stay. Together we chose trust. A ship bearing Vexthar markings docked at the station, more of Kira's people coming to learn, to see if this new way was real. They still fear, Kira said. My people fear change. Other species fear us. Fear everywhere. Fear is natural, Doyen replied. What matters is what we do with it. You teach me that. Long time ago. Still teach me, Doyen smiled. And you teach others. That's how it spreads. One person at a time. One choice at a time. The stars shone above Unity Point Alpha, indifferent to the struggles of the beings below. But among those beings, something impossible was happening. Predators and prey were learning to coexist. Not perfectly, not easily, but truly. And it all started because one lonely human found an injured cub and made a simple choice. To save instead of destroy. To hope instead of fear, to love instead of hate. The galaxy was still telling the story, but now it was a story about possibility, about the power of compassion, about the future they were all building together. Kira turned from the window and placed her paw gently on Doyen's shoulder. Thank you, she said. For everything. No, Doyen replied, his voice thick with emotion.